Breaking. Keir Starmer just pulled off the most desperate political U-turn in British history. And what happened next has sent shockwaves through Westminster and beyond. Reform UK has surged to its highest polling numbers ever, crushing Labour in every major survey. Nigel Farage is now being called the next Prime Minister by political experts. And Starmer's own MPs are openly questioning whether their leader has completely lost his mind. This isn't just a policy shift. This is a government in absolute freefall, desperately copying the very party that's about to destroy them. If you want to understand how British politics just changed forever, hit that subscribe button right now because what you're about to see will shock you to your core. Here's how Starmer just committed political suicide in real time. 3 months ago, Keir Starmer stood before Parliament promising a humane, compassionate approach to immigration. He criticized the Conservatives for being too harsh, too cruel, too disconnected from British values. He went as far as calling millions of British voters racist and dangerous for supporting stricter immigration controls.
Well, you're a racist, aren't you? Let's be honest, you're a racist, and apparently so am I. We're racist. How do you feel about that, Layla Cunningham?
If wanting border control, wanting people to come here and pay their way, then fine, I'm racist. Call me whatever you want. In fact, I feel the more insults come our way, the more we're galvanized and we realize that we're fighting for this country. And to call us racist, to call Nigel Farage as leader of the country, to call millions of people that support him and to call him a racist and a danger to this country is one of the most irresponsible things I feel a leader has ever done.
I was utterly gobsmacked yesterday. We have to continue it today because, of course, he's rode back today, which is got him even more of a pickle in my mind. Because yesterday, you know, I'm going to fight. That's incendiary, and this man is anti-British, which is that was almost the worst thing in my mind. And then basically, so stupid is he that he's saying to 15 million people, "You're racist." And then today, even more confusing. No. Nigel Farage is not a racist, he's a formidable man. I'm not calling these people racist, I'm just saying the policy is. But surely, Layla, by supporting a policy that's been labelled racist, that would mean you support racism, so you'd be a racist, or am I missing the point?
Of course, no, you're not missing the point. He knew exactly what he was doing. He did that to galvanize his base, and I think it probably did, because I heard comments on the radio and so forth. The base was galvanized. They were happy, and his cabinet members doubled down on it. Didn't Shabana Mahmood say it was worse than racism? For God's sake, what's worse than racism? But when leaders of our country smear millions of ordinary people as racist or a danger to this country, it's no longer politics, Jeremy. It is reckless, because some people might take that seriously. If you convince them that their neighbor is a threat or racist, some might do whatever it takes to silence them. And that, for me, incites division and violence. And some people say, oh, but you believe in free speech.
The same leader who condemned these policies as immoral is now scrambling to implement them himself. Fast forward to today, and Starmer has just announced the most draconian immigration crackdown in modern British history. We're talking about digital ID cards for every citizen, extending citizenship waiting periods from 5 to 10 years, eliminating family reunification rights for asylum seekers. And here's the kicker. He's doing all of this while polling shows that only 17% of Britons trust Labour on immigration issues. The hypocrisy is staggering. Labour's Home Secretary Yvette Cooper announced virtually identical policies to reform UK at the Labour conference. The same policies Starmer called racist and immoral just months ago. Labour can only resort to name-calling like far-right and racist because they cannot debate the actual policies on merit. They're calling the same policies racist when proposed by Reform, but moral when proposed by themselves.
It's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
And do you think that Reform UK is trying to appeal to racists?
No, I think that there are plenty of people who either vote Reform or are thinking of voting Reform who are frustrated. They had 14 years of failure under the Conservatives. They want us to change things. They may have voted Labour a year ago, and they want the change to come more quickly.
What do you think what does he mean? You know, so he says it's a racist policy. But they've made a big point, Layla, of saying, oh, well, we're not saying Nigel Farage is racist. We're not saying that people who support Reform UK are racists, but that is a racist policy. As I just said, it's the same as Shabana Mahmood's policy going forward. So you're right. This is a betrayal of Keir Starmer's desperation. He cannot argue with you logically, so he's calling you names.
I mean, this is the playbook, right? We've not mentioned race. We're not talking about ethnicity or background. We don't care where you're from. You could be white from America. Race doesn't come into it. I don't even know what they're talking about. We're talking about who qualifies to stay permanently in Britain and live off a system that British working people.
Meanwhile, Reform UK sits at a staggering 34% in the latest Ipsos poll, giving Nigel Farage a 9-point lead over Labour. The optics are absolutely devastating. Starmer looks like a man who has completely abandoned every principle he once claimed to hold dear. His own MPs are calling this tone deaf. Over 100 human rights organizations have condemned these measures as the harshest immigration policies Britain has seen in decades. But here's what makes this even more catastrophic for Labour. The British public isn't buying it. They can smell desperation from a mile away. When you spend months attacking someone's policies as inhumane, then suddenly adopt even harsher versions of those same policies, you don't look strong. You look weak, unprincipled, and utterly lost. The polling numbers tell the brutal truth. Reform UK has reached its highest ever recorded support at 34%. Labour has crashed to just 25%, their lowest since October 2019. The Conservatives are at a pathetic 15%, their worst performance in Ipsos history. But it gets so much worse for Starmer. His personal approval ratings have hit historic lows. 50% of Britons say he's doing a bad job as Prime Minister, up from 45% just months ago. Even among Labour's own 2024 voters, nearly half are disappointed with what the government has done so far. This is a leader who has lost the confidence of his own supporters while failing spectacularly to win over anyone else. Farage has been masterfully using this disconnect to his advantage. In Parliament, he's been invoking local petitions signed by thousands of residents, using them as evidence of the disconnect between voters and Westminster. He frames local grievances as a national story about representation, attacking the government's handling of pensioners' winter fuel allowance, family farm inheritance tax, and small business national insurance costs. His argument is simple but devastating. Pessimistic government signaling discourages investment, while optimistic leadership encourages it.
Featured prominently in the address, Farage linked high net migration in recent years to pressures on housing supply, school places, and local wages, and suggested those dynamics had contributed to falls in GDP per capita in several recent quarters. The causal chain is contested. Migration changes labor supply and demographic structure, but it can also add skills, entrepreneurial capacity, and a broader tax base. Independent fiscal analyses, including work by institutions that model demographic scenarios, show that migration alters labor force projections and infrastructure needs, and therefore demands multi-year planning rather than quick headline fixes. The speech used historical contrast as a rhetorical device. Farage invoked the optimistic governing tone associated with an earlier era of politics to claim that upbeat leadership encourages investment and public morale, while pessimistic signaling discourages it. By making style an argument in itself, he invited listeners to judge leaders on affect as well as on policy content. Electoral strategy lay behind the rhetoric. Farage forecast that the next general election would produce a substantially different parliament and presented Reform UK as the vehicle for that realignment. The strategic logic combines emotive local storytelling, the winter fuel allowance, the family farm, with policy.
The digital ID card proposal is perhaps the most tone-deaf policy announcement in recent British political history. Every previous attempt to introduce identity cards in Britain has failed miserably. The British public has a deep cultural resistance to government identification documents, NTS. They associate them with wartime rationing, authoritarian overreach, and privacy invasion. Yet Starmer's team somehow thought this was the perfect time to revive this political poison pill. Labour's proposed Brit cards, supposedly to crack down on illegal working, reveal the true agenda. This is really about socialist control and tracking British citizens rather than solving immigration issues.
Sign, fill in the blanks.
Yeah. It looks as if the BBC, the £400,000 it's been given, has been coming from comic relief more than children in need. That's the red nose thing. But I don't think there's anything funny about handing £400,000 to a charity that helps migrants get around our immigration system. The BBC's got questions to answer here, hasn't it?
I mean, definitely, especially people are thinking they're giving for a good cause, when actually they're telling illegal migrants exactly how to beat our laws. That is not a good cause.
It certainly isn't. Let's go back just before you go. Thanks for joining us, Layla. Always a pleasure. To the ID cards. They're called Brit cards. I can't work out. Of course, Keir Starmer and the gang, oh, well, it's going to crack down on illegal working by migrants. Well, we have a system already whereby legal working requires, proof of residency, and also, of course, your national insurance number. If you don't have a national insurance number, officially you can't work. Now, Keir Starmer delivered this big speech last week saying, oh, well, this will sort this out, this will crack down on illegal working. That's because I think he's so enthralled to rules and regulations that he can barely conceive of people breaking them.
Illegal employers already break existing laws requiring national insurance numbers, so adding ID cards won't stop them. This represents an assault on traditional British freedoms, with the state trying to control citizens while failing to control borders. The backlash has been immediate and bipartisan. Jeremy Corbyn called it an affront to civil liberties. Nigel Farage said it will make no difference to illegal immigration while controlling and penalizing law-abiding citizens. Even Liberal Democrat voters are expressing concern about government overreach. When your policy unites Jeremy Corbyn and Nigel Farage in opposition, you know you've made a catastrophic miscalculation. But the immigration crackdown itself reveals something even more damaging about Starmer's leadership. He's essentially admitting that Reform UK was right all along. After months of calling Farage's positions extreme and dangerous, Starmer is now adopting policies that are arguably even more restrictive. The message this sends to voters is clear. If these policies are necessary now, why did Labour oppose them before? If Reform UK was right about immigration, what else are they right about? Reform UK's head of policy has been particularly scathing in their response. They've accused Starmer of using inflammatory language to demonize Nigel Farage, claiming the PM is inciting violence against Farage because he knows he cannot beat Nigel at the ballot box. The revelation that Farage's security was recently cut by 75% has only added fuel to these accusations. This isn't political triangulation. This is political surrender disguised as strategy. Starmer is basically campaigning for Reform UK while wearing a Labour rosette. Every harsh immigration measure he announces just reinforces Farage's core message that the establishment parties have failed on this issue for decades. The electoral mathematics are becoming terrifying for Labour. Recent YouGov MRP polling shows Reform UK winning 311 seats in a hypothetical election, just 15 seats short of an absolute majority. Labour would be reduced to 144 seats, a loss of 267 from their 2024 result. In Scotland, Labour would win just 9 seats compared to 37 for the SNP. In Wales, Labour would be reduced to just 3 seats, all in Cardiff. This would be the first time since 1918 that Labour didn't win the most seats in Wales. The Conservative Party would be annihilated, winning just 45 seats. These aren't normal polling fluctuations. This is a complete realignment of British politics happening in real time. And Starmer's desperate immigration pivot is accelerating this process rather than stopping it. The fundamental problem is that Starmer has no authentic political identity. He's not a conviction politician like Corbyn or Farage. He's a technocrat who tries to calculate his way to electoral success. But voters can sense this inauthenticity from miles away. When you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And right now, Starmer is falling for the illusion that he can out-reform reform by copying their policies. The timing couldn't be worse. Immigration is now the top concern for 38% of British voters, the highest level since 2016. But instead of offering a distinctly Labour approach to this challenge, Starmer is offering a watered-down version of Reform UK's agenda. Why would voters choose the imitation when they can have the original? Nigel Farage must be laughing all the way to Downing Street. Every harsh immigration measure Starmer announces validates everything Reform UK has been saying for years. Every desperate policy U-turn makes Farage look more principled and consistent by comparison. Every falling poll number for Labour makes Reform UK look more like a government in waiting. The internal Labour polling must be absolutely catastrophic for Starmer to make such a dramatic shift. You don't abandon core principles and alienate your own MPs unless you're facing an existential political crisis. Sources inside Labour describe an atmosphere of panic and despair. Ministers who once stood loyally beside Starmer are now quietly plotting their escape routes. The British public is watching a prime minister self-destruct in real time. Less than 18 months after winning a landslide victory, Starmer looks like a man who has completely lost control of both his party and his message. His immigration crackdown isn't showing strength. It's revealing weakness, desperation, and a complete absence of political courage. This is what happens when you try to be everything to everyone. You end up being nothing to anyone. Starmer promised change, but the only thing that's changed is how quickly his government is falling apart. The rise of Reform UK isn't just about immigration. It's about authenticity versus calculation, conviction versus compromise, leadership versus management. And on every one of these measures, Nigel Farage is winning decisively. The most damaging aspect of this entire debacle is how it makes Starmer look to his own supporters. Labour voters didn't back him to become a pound-shop version of Nigel Farage. They wanted a principled alternative to right-wing populism. Instead, they're getting a leader who seems willing to abandon any principle if it might win him a few poll points. But it's not working. The polls keep getting worse. The criticism keeps getting louder. The sense of political panic keeps growing. This immigration U-turn isn't saving Starmer's leadership. It's hastening its end. We're witnessing the complete collapse of the post-Blair Labour project. The party that once dominated British politics for over a decade is now trailing a party that didn't even exist 5 years ago. This is political history being written in real time, and Keir Starmer's desperate immigration gambit will be remembered as the moment Labour's decline became irreversible. The question isn't whether Starmer can survive this crisis. Political analysts agree his leadership is effectively finished. The only question is whether his party can survive the wreckage he's creating. Reform UK's rise to 34% in the polls isn't just a number, it's a revolution. And Starmer's pathetic attempt to stop it by copying their policies has only made that revolution more inevitable. What do you think? Has Starmer's immigration U-turn destroyed Labour's chances of recovery? Is this the moment Reform UK became unstoppable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and if this analysis opened your eyes to what's really happening in British politics, share it with everyone who needs to understand how dramatically everything has changed. The mainstream media won't tell you the full truth about Starmer's desperation, but we will.